Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. My name is Bernadette Desir, and I'm your host. Joining me today is Dr. Joy. How are you?
I am well. I'm well. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here.
You're welcome. So, can you tell us where you're tuning in from?
I am tuning in from Michigan, specifically Detroit. I am in the city. So Detroit.
Oh, nice. So, what's the weather like? You tell me yours, I'll tell you mine.
Oh, um, mm. It is a little dreary. We've got some snowy rain happening right now, and it
Okay.
is, yeah.
Yeah, it's been very cold here, brutal cold. I know you guys have
Yes.
a temperature difference. I don't understand Fahrenheit. That's why I had to look it up on Google. So it will get up to minus 26 Fahrenheit, I think. That's cold.
Minus 26?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. I
Woo.
understand in Celsius too. So with wind chill, we get minus 26 or 40. That's Celsius. Yeah.
26 or 40.
Hmm.
Wow.
It gets worse in other parts in Canada. I'm actually in a warmer um part of it. It could be worse, but yeah, we get some pretty
Oh
wild
goodness.
times. What was that?
Oh, I said, oh goodness. And we're right across. So in Detroit, we're literally right across the bridge from Windsor, Ontario. So
Mm,
like Ontario is about 10 minutes from me. Like, I can
no
just
way.
drive right over. Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
wow, that's
Um,
so cool.
yeah, we're right at the
Just wave
border.
hello to us. We'll wave.
Yes. So it's a Yeah, so it is cold here. But as I don't know if it's as cold as it is where you are in the part that you are, but it's yeah, like I said, we're not far from the border at all. So
back. Yeah, yeah. So welcome, welcome. So can you tell us who you are and what you do?
so I am a licensed professional counselor for the state of Michigan. So I'm a
Mhm.
therapist by trade. I am extremely excited about mental health and being able to contribute to the well-being of individuals by making sure that our minds are in order. I tell people all the time, like our minds are. It is so important that we deal with
Mhm.
our minds.
Yeah.
We can have a physical ailment, but if we have our minds, we can make the best of it, and we can continue to operate very, very well. But once that mind goes,
Mm.
there's nothing else, right? So
Yeah.
that is my passion. So
Mhm,
that is who
mhm.
I am. That is who I am.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, take us back a bit. What got you into doing what you're doing right now?
So it was an accident. Okay. So I am a minister, and so once I started preaching, my
Mhm,
pastor told us that we had to go to school for seminary in order to be ordained. And
mhm,
so the seminary that I chose to go to had a counseling program. And
mhm.
so I was young, 20 in my late 20s and mid 20s when I got started. And I um I was like, they have a counseling program. Okay, well, I can combine that with the degree that they wanted me to get. I'm like, okay, great. Well, I can do this part first, so then at least I can make money while I'm whatever. So it was just kind of like, okay, well, let's go that route. And so so I call it a beautiful accident, right? Like I was going for one thing, and I wound up full-fledged into a mental health counseling program.
Oh, wow. That is a
That was
beautiful accident.
It is a beautiful accident. So that was
Yeah.
how I started. That was how I started. And but what really is the most beautiful thing of it all for me was being able to recognize my own vulnerability and being able to recognize my own need for transformation. Like I went into this like I'm like, oh, I can help people. People already talk to me anyway because that's what I thought counseling was about, right? That's what I thought mental health, being a therapist was about. like people come talk to me anyway. At least I can get paid for it, that kind of situation. And so, part of the program was to do your own mental health counseling. We had to have our own mental health counseling. And so, we had to have, I think it was like 25 hours of mental health counseling.
Mhm.
And I told them I didn't need any mental health help.
Yeah.
So that was just really that was its own situation. So that was fun.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. Um, so essentially, I told them I was like, I don't need no mental health help. Like I'm here to help people.
Yeah.
And so what I wound up doing was going into the very first counseling session, and the counselor said, "How can I help you?" No, I was like, "No, no. What can I do for you?" I think was the question she asked. Or no, what do you need? What do you need? I said these hours. Like I just need these 25 hours, and I need to be done. And she was just outdone, and we are the best of friends to this day because after that, like I was like I oh my goodness, I went through this process of transformation that was amazing. It was beautiful. It was challenging. It was hard. It was all of the things. And it was really just being able to relinquish my ability to
Mhm.
be right all the time.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So how long have you been practicing for?
About 10 years since 2014, 2013, 2014. So maybe a little over 10 years now.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you work with kids, adults, or just anybody?
So primarily adults. I have worked with children, and I will under very, very special circumstances. But primarily adults. Primarily adults. My age range is usually 30, 35 to about 50, 55, something of that nature.
Oh, okay, okay. That's really cool. Do you have healthcare professionals in your family, or is it only you who's focusing on that?
It is only me. It
Oh,
is only me.
wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's awesome. Yeah. So, what does mental health mean to you as a doctor, a therapist? How do you impact those you're serving?
How do I impact those that I'm serving? I impact those that I am serving by really just giving my all, and really making sure that I have, um, by really making sure that I am looking for the best in them and being able to show them the other side of the point in which they are. So that's how I impact people by showing them the other side to the point of despair.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. Um, so do you have anyone in your family that is diagnosed or have any mental health issues that you have experience with, or is it just your clients?
Just my clients. Many of my family members, like so many of my family members, have experienced some level of therapy. None are living with like a mental health disorder.
Oh,
Um, yeah.
oh,
So
okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Uh, would you be able to tell that I'm diagnosed with several mental health issues?
no, see, mental health is invisible, right? Like
Yes.
absolutely not by looking.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I'm diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Okay.
Yes, the anxiety, depression, and that is why I enjoy talking to professionals like you because you already know it's invisible, but to most of us in society, we can't see it. Therefore, we don't know how to understand those who suffer with it and
Mm-hmm.
those who struggle with it. What are some of the few examples of the severities of mental health issues that you've worked with? Because I know with schizophrenia, it can go from 1 to 10.
Yes. And so I have across the map. So right now I see patients clinically through I contract through one of the telehealth telemedicine agencies, and so of course you can see from one end of the spectrum to the next. And then one of the things that adds to that, so I'm from Detroit, and so we're talking inner city. And so one of the things that you can really experience in a place like that are the disparities in mental health. Um, like being able to just really for people to even be able to afford it and all of those kinds of things.
Mm. Can you go into a bit of more details by that? What do you mean by disparities?
So disparities. So one of the things that happens in the US is like sometimes in underserved communities, like
Mm,
one of the things that you'll run into is mental health care. It can be a bit sparse. It can be hard to find people who take certain insurances that are generally for people who cannot afford a major insurance or things of that nature.
mhm,
The other thing that so one when I first graduated from my counseling program, I was going to go out and save the world and get this job and this mental health agency. And I walked in for an interview, and
mhm,
the woman said to me, "How long are your sessions?" And I said, "About 45 to 55 minutes." And she goes, "Okay, well, we bill Medicaid, so it's going to have to be done in about 15 minutes." And
Oh,
I was shocked. I was
oh
shocked
wow.
and appalled. And I
Mhm,
was like,
mhm.
and I asked her, I said, "So how do people experience healing in 15 minutes?" And she looked me square in my face and said, "We put on a lot of band-aids here."
Wow.
And it was from that point that I knew that I wanted to be a part of the solution.
Mhm,
Um, and I want to continue to be a part of the solution. And so that was the reason that I began the process of creating the Daughter Status Foundation, which is a mental health agency that we focus on being able to serve individuals who um, could be experiencing financial hardship, because I believe everybody deserves quality mental health care. And
wow.
so that is, so that's where I come from on that
Mm,
space.
yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And isn't it sad that sometimes those who need the help don't always get it?
Mm-hmm.
And we wait, yeah, we wait until it gets really, really bad, until it's an emergency.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because here's the thing, sometimes we don't know until it's an
Mm,
emergency,
mm,
right? That's the
mhm,
problem, that sometimes we don't know until the situation is emergent.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, within your practice and your experiences, when do you know it's urgent?
So sometimes it's in the conversation. It depends, and if it's a regular patient, you kind of know your patient's tendencies and things of that nature.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so usually it's really in the conversation, and it's really in the rapport that you've built with your patients. And how, but here's the thing, like sometimes when people are coming for mental health support and things of that nature, like they're camouflaged pretty well, right? Because they know that they need help, or they know the right things to say. So
Yeah.
you really depend on the client, the patient, to tell the truth and be
Mhm,
honest about where they are. And sometimes it's hard to get there.
mhm. Yeah, how would you advise healthcare professionals to build trust with their patients?
So being able to be open, being clear about what it is and how you serve them. One of the main things for me is like I am extremely honest about the skill set that I have, right? Like if it's something that I've never dealt with or whatever the case may be, I let the patient know. Like this is not something that is in my wheelhouse. Like I am not, qualified. I don't have the tools,
Mhm.
to be able to handle, unfortunately, be able to handle the issue at hand.
Yeah.
And so um that's one of the biggest ways to build rapport, is literally just being honest. And here's the thing, I have had people, like I've told them, like this is not in my wheelhouse, and it would mean that we will be like wind up learning together type of situation, and they've been like, "I love the fact that you said that," and they still want me
Mhm.
and they still want me to take on their case. And that has been, it has had its own interesting feat. So being honest with your patients, being honest with yourself, like what are your biases? What are the things that you are um struggling with yourself? What are the things that, could sway your diagnosis or sway your opinion, right? So like if you're honest with yourself, then you can actually ward against it if it comes up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's crucial to have that trust and honesty. Um, Coming from someone with mental health issues, I've seen lots of therapists, I've been in hospitals and all of it. So I have the experience.
Mhm.
Um, One of the many things that shut me down and off from opening up at the time, probably still now, is not being heard. It's
Mhm.
different when someone is listening. They're not deaf, they can hear, but they're not listening, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like a client is talking, and then there's a few sessions. It's just there's no goals. Nothing's really moving forward. It's like going around in a circle. That
Mhm.
triggers me and push me back and makes me do not want to get help. I want to see progress, not sessions after sessions with nothing. It feels empty. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So one of the things I tell my clients all the time is it's my job to work myself out of a job.
Yeah, yeah.
The whole idea is that you experience some level of healing, that you experience some level of progress. And I also let my clients know that I have a bias towards movement.
Mhm,
And what I mean by that is like I can be with you right where you are,
mhm, mhm,
and I'll let you drive because this is your session and this is all about how you want to move. If
mhm,
you walk, I'll walk. If you run, I'll run. And if
mhm.
you stand still, I'll stand still, but not for long. Because it is always necessary for just for continued movement.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's what I feel about that. I agree with you. There should always be some level of progress.
Mhm. Yeah. As a therapist, what do you see other therapists doing that is either working or not working?
That's a really good question. Some things that I see that is working, I definitely see a lot of therapists who are, who attempt to be with their patients, who use their clients rather, that who use um, modalities that are helpful. Um, and they also use, um, they stay up with the most current technologies, so that they can continue to help with whatever the patients are going through currently and those kinds of things. I think that is helpful. Some things that I think are less helpful are providers who overtalk, um, who share too
Yeah.
much. I think there's a level of healthy self disclosure, but this is not your session. Your client should not be counseling you. Um, so I think sometimes that could be a thing. Um, yeah, and
Mhm,
sometimes, honestly, I think a provider can stay too long. And so that's whether it's in the field area, the specialty that they're in, or whether it's just simply in the field at all, right? Like, um, I think it's important for us to recognize when we are functioning in a helpful way and we are functioning in a way that is not no longer serving uh, the community or ourselves.
mhm. Yeah. In your own words, can you tell me what are some of the gaps that you notice in the healthcare system where you are? I know it's different here. If you could talk to leaders, those who are in power, who makes big decisions, which are not always good for everybody, what would you say to them?
Pay attention to mental health. Pay big attention to mental health. I know up until probably recently, probably the last 3 to 5 years or so, mental health has kind of taken a back seat to things that you can see, illnesses that you can see, big pharma, things of that nature. And we don't, and it has been also more difficult to prove even maybe disabilities that are related to mental health because, oh, they look so normal, right? And
Yeah.
so I would say just because someone looks normal, it does not mean they are not living with something that is life changing, right? Life altering. So definitely, I would ask to just pay really close attention and to also um, a equal livable wage, right, for mental health practitioners. I know that there's a huge disparity in um, compensation for a mental health appointment and a doctor
Yeah.
checkup. So and I think they're equally important. I don't think one should be less. I just think they're equally important, and I think it would be important to have those conversations about what that equal compensation looks like.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's an ongoing issue across borders around the world. I'll speak
Hmm.
for here. Especially during the pandemic. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of clients, specifically, those healthcare professionals in general, they suffered and they shouldn't have the way they did.
Mm,
When it comes to government and resources and payment, I think their wages should have gone up and stayed up, right? Because people are still getting sick every single day. But yeah, I agree. I agree. Hmm.
absolutely, absolutely. And
Hmm.
the one of the thing is we've proven that we could pay the higher wage,
Hmm.
but we don't stay
Yeah.
there, right? So because they'll take it, we'll accept it, and sometimes, unfortunately, that's the case
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say there's enough resources within communities? Let's
within
say where
communities.
you're at, are there enough community resources people with mental health diagnosis can get referrals, let's say for housing, food banks, or if they don't have family members,
Hmm.
could there be workers or someone who come to help them through what they're going through?
I think it depends on the community.
Yeah.
um, some communities, yes. I mean, and unfortunately, like we, one of the things that it continues to be an issue across the board here, particularly in the United States, is um, the class differences, the racial differences, our issues, those kinds of things. Unfortunately, so it can depend, right? Like there are some underserved communities, right? I think there are agencies that are doing the very best that they can, and I take my hat off literally to them, and hope that they can do more. um what I did not understand about that community mental health agency that I walked into 10 years ago was they were doing the best they could with what they had.
Mhm.
um it still lit a fire in me, but now, like, being on the other side of it, like, I understand, like, they were working with what they had. They were working with who would come. They were working with what they could get paid. And so I'm grateful for community mental health agencies that allow um people who otherwise would not be served to be served. um
Mhm.
and so I'm grateful, and there is still a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing. You're also a coach.
Mhm.
What I've talked to lots of coaches. Tell me your approach as a coach.
So my approach as a coach is very so honestly. So my approach as a coach is very similar to my approach as a therapist, like
Mhm.
letting the person drive and those kinds of things. Of course, sharing my expertise and building plans and showing the game plan and all of that kind of stuff as a coach. However, one of the biggest things for me is being able to show people the other side of hope. I think I said that earlier, and if I didn't, if we were off camera, I can't remember. But being able to show people the other side of hope, because what I believe, so whether I'm coaching or whether I am doing therapy, I believe that no matter where you are, there is always more, and that
Mm,
is key to movement. It is key to growth. It is key to development. And if we believe that there is always more, then we're always growing. So as a coach, there should always be a space of expansiveness. It should never be a space where we get to a point and we're saying, yep, we're done, we're here, right? That's just my personal belief. So we should always be expanding something, whether it's our mind, whether it's our mental health, whether it's our mindset, whether it is our spiritual capability, whatever it is, we should be expanding. we should be expansive. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
that is my
yeah, I
like how I
agree.
approach coaching.
Yeah. Why is it important to have hope, even though sometimes when there are no reasons to find hope to be hopeful for?
Hope fuels us. Hope keeps us going, right? And so it's super important that we're able to, one of the ways that, so goodness, like I want to go three different ways with that question. Uh, one of the ways that I define hope is my daring ability to believe that God cares about my desires, right? And I say that because if I believe that God cares about my desires, then if I don't have all of my desires and I desire more, then God is going to have the universe conspire, right? And to get me to where I want to be, or to, God is going to make things happen, right? And not in a magic genie kind of way, but in a, I'm doing the work to make things happen. I'm, finding my way and all of those kinds of things, right? Excuse me. So
Mhm,
with that being said, like I feel like it is so important, like super important to have hope in order to see the other side. Another way that I define hope is the other side of despair. It's the other side of despair, right? Like if we don't want to talk spiritual, we can talk literally, like it's the other side of the thing that you are now. So
mhm,
whether it's and everybody's not in despair, so let's be clear. But like if you're in a space right now and everything is great, like what if there's more?
mhm,
That's hope. And that's why it's important for people to have hope.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love how you explain it. It makes sense. Um, when it comes to strategies, you're also, I can't say that word, strategist. I did it.
Mhm. You did it.
Um, give me a few examples of some tools that you use.
Um, so for coaching or for therapy?
Both.
So for therapy, I primarily use cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness. I am huge on mindfulness because I definitely think like there is something about just being in the present moment, being where you are right now, and being able to appreciate, everything about like the now.
Mhm,
And that actually translates to my coaching. Like I will seriously, like whether I'm doing business coaching, life coaching, whatever it is, I'm like, where are we now? And how do we appreciate and celebrate where we are now? And then how can we move forward?
yeah.
Because again, we go from the now to more,
Mhm,
right? And that's like that is like my biggest approach to life in general, now to more. And I think there's some very key ways that we can do that. And one of those ways is being in accountability. So having somebody to ask you the right questions. So whether that's a coach or a therapist, a trusted friend, a loved one, a pastor, whoever knows you well enough that they can ask you the right questions. And not only that they can, but that they will. That's being an accountability. So committing to what you say you're going to do for yourself or for others and
mhm,
carrying that out, and then having somebody to ask you the right questions to make sure that you're carrying that out. And so that's an accountability piece. Growth, making sure all the things that you are doing are leading to that more place. So everything should either be you growing or you helping other people to grow.
mhm,
Excellence, operating in a um excellent manner, right? Like in a and I don't mean when I say excellence, I don't mean perfection.
mhm,
I mean doing it your best. See, what I believe with excellence is today, my excellence, my very best might be a 2, and I give myself grace to have that 2. Where tomorrow, it might be a 10, and I congratulate and I celebrate the 10, right? But at the end of the day, if I can ask my question, did I give it my very best? Did I give it my all? Whether it's a 2 or a 10, I've done my best. And that's excellence, right?
yeah,
So excellence change from moment to moment and day to day. It just, excellence is a mindset. And so when we agree that excellence isn't always a 10, we can appreciate the two.
Mhm,
See,
mhm,
when we say that it always has to be a 10, we resent the two. And when we resent the two, that to me leads to those hard places in our mental health where it's like, oh, I'm anxious or I'm depressed because I can't get past this too. Are you doing your best? Now, do we
mhm.
strive for more and growth? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then finally, for me, it's structure. What's the container? What do you put it all in? And then how do you present it? And it doesn't have to be rigid, right? The container can be flexibility, that adaptability, right? That can be the structure. So for me, it's accountability, growth, excellence, and structure.
Wow. I love everything you just shared. Wow, wow, wow. I have done CBT and it works, but it wasn't enough. I've
Hmm.
been meditating for the past 2 years. I don't even know who this woman is. Like, I'm calm. I don't know. My thoughts are not scattered. I can speak. Yeah, I have some times when I use pictures to talk most of the time,
Hmm.
like visual pictures in my mind. That's how I slow my mind down. But it does work. It does work. Everything you said to have those structures. And I think more than ever, based on my experience, it is so crucial for anyone struggling with almost anything but mental health issues specifically to have structures.
Hmm.
For me,
Hmm.
it's routine, boundaries. Those have saved me and helped me a lot. What are your thoughts on routines and boundaries, healthy boundaries?
Super important, just super important. Root, listen, listen, even for the most sporadic person, a routine is important. Like, um, and I am very much a, I do what feels good, needs to be done type situation. But there are some things that I do not leave to chance because I need a healthy routine, right? Boundaries, oh gosh, absolutely. Because you got to be able to know what you can take and what you can't take. And you got to be able to share that and communicate that and articulate that to other people so that they can help you in that space. And when I say help you, I mean honor what you've said. So I think they're immensely important.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and not having those can truly create chaos, resentment,
Absolutely.
anger from experience, right? Because
Absolutely.
I didn't want to let people down, but I was letting myself down by bringing them up. I think
Mm-hmm.
especially as a mom, but many of us do it. We
Mm-hmm.
give the world to others and give the crumbs to ourselves, whatever's left over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and I think that is such a grave mistake. I am an a that's a grave mistake. I am a
Yeah.
self-care advocate. My entire dissertation was
Yeah.
based on self-care. Even
Mhm.
the biblical parts. I was like, it's got to be somewhere in the Bible where they telling us to take care of ourselves, and there is plenty of places in biblical history. Um, so I purposefully talked about taking care of yourself because one thing I learned is you can burn yourself out helping somebody else, and then what will happen? They'll be elevated and you'll be burnt out. And that is not okay.
Yeah.
And what I had to learn was like, I'm the most important person in my world. And I don't mean that haughtily. I don't mean that egregiously. I mean that as a matter of fact. Because if I'm not well, the little ones that I'm called to, the big ones that I'm called to, and those in between that I'm called to cannot be served. And they definitely cannot be served well. So I
Mm.
have to make sure that I'm well so that I can serve not even from my cup. Like I want to serve from the puddle on the table, the overflow, not even the saucer. I want to serve from just everything that is left over. So that means that I have to continuously pour into myself and feed myself so that I can give to others. And when I'm giving from others from those places, even if, even if it gets to the point where it gets to the cup, which if I plan to give from the saucer and the table, we're much better. But even if it gets to the cup, like I can say, okay, I've had enough, and I'm still not at a place of despair, and I'm not at a place of burnout, and I'm not at a place of rundown. I'm still good, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's so important to set. I think it's so important to set those boundaries, to be able to take care of yourself, and to be able, and to not feel bad about it. Like,
Yeah.
never feel bad about it for yourself.
Yeah. 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 Lots of guilt can set in when we start to feel that way. And it's like a chain
Hmm.
reaction, right? Not one thing ever fall
Yes,
without grabbing the other. Guilt, shame, anger, and then we dislike our situation when really we're the only one who can make the changes that we know we need, but we don't do it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so what that means is that we got to get honest with ourselves, and we got to get honest with the fact that, get honest with whether or not we are serving or sabotaging, because it's
Yeah.
only one or the other.
Yeah. 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 I agree. Sorry, do you need to go soon or are we good on time?
I'm good on time for now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm just checking so I don't go over. I don't mind going over. I'm
Oh
just
no,
checking.
no, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
No,
That's
I'm good if you're good.
oh, I'm good. I'm good for another half hour or 15 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
good. Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to share that we haven't touched on so far?
Um, so I feel like I have, shared quite a bit.
Yeah, you have.
Um, I feel like for me, the main thing is like being able to understand mental health, understand the purpose of mental health.
Mhm,
One of the primary reasons that I started the mental health membership was because I feel like we do all the things for our bodies, right? Like we go to the gym. We go, especially first of the year, new me, right? We gonna go to the gym, we gonna get that,
mhm,
we gonna go back to the church, we gonna do all the things that we do, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But while
mhm.
we're doing that, in addition to that, let's invest in our mental health. Let's
Yeah.
say I'm going to invest in my mental health for the year.
Mhm,
Like just like we say we're gonna do all these other things,
mhm.
let's get that mind right. It's so important. Super
Yeah,
important.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Let's talk a little bit about advocacy because many patients, they're either too sick or don't understand their reality from experience, and they need help, but they don't really have a support person. How important is it for mental health professionals to help their clients when it comes to advocacy? Could be referrals, meds, and many other aspects.
So not only is it important, it's our job. Like it's our ethical responsibility that if there's something that is beyond us that we can support with, to be able to say, hey, I can't do this, but I can refer you to that next step. Um,
Mhm,
Oftentimes people who are living with mental illnesses, um, as much as they want to advocate for themselves, there are times when they simply can't. So if I see client patient spiraling, right, I'm going to address it, and then I'm going to say, how do we work beyond our 50-minute session? What things can we do to ensure that you get the help that you need, right? And so some of that will be questions to them, but also some of that is kind of knowing their situations and things of that nature. Because now, while I'm not a social worker, and I know social workers do an amazing job of finding resources and things of that nature, you
mhm.
know, my client can't get better if they're hungry all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, what resources are available? Hey, how are you? Here is a few numbers to some food banks. Here are a few numbers to some soup kitchens or whatever the case is. It's going to be super important because like you can't even get to whatever is ailing them if you haven't dealt with those environmental issues, right?
Mhm,
And if
mhm.
an issue is environmental and you can't change that issue, sometimes it's difficult to change behaviors. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I
advocacy
agree.
is super important in actually changing behaviors.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about men. I don't know if you work with men or not. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Okay. So with men, they're not as expressive as us, women. All right, they do suffer in silence, and their struggles, maybe they're similar to ours, but it comes off differently. What do I mean by that? The way they interact at work, how much they disclose to even their spouse or loved ones. They just suffer until it's too late. How can we all, men, women, continue to empower all of us to openly talk about mental health without shame or guilt?
The biggest thing is to continue to have the conversation.
Mhm,
Continue to have the conversation. Keep talking, keep saying, like, particularly if there's a man in your life, keep having those conversations with them. Yes, they may or may not be guarded or whatever the case is. Now, what I'll say is when they get into my office, it's a whole different story. They let it all out. We got tears and all the things, but it really is super important for them to have a support system and be able to feel comfortable. Like, how many times have we heard, men don't cry, men don't da da da. Yes, they do, and it's okay, and it's important, and we'll
yeah,
continue to have the conversation to say it's okay,
yeah,
and not only is it okay, but please do.
mhm, mhm,
So encouraging them to express and be expressive in their feelings.
yeah, yeah, I agree. What is the Daughter Status Foundation? Tell me more.
So, Daughter Status Foundation is a charity organization that is designed to help individuals to receive quality behavioral health care. I mentioned earlier that when I first got out of school and I went to that community mental health to be
Mm,
able to try to get the job, and they were like, "We put on a lot of band aids." Well, it was then in that moment that I knew I wanted to be a part of the solution. And that was when I created the Daughter Status Foundation. I began that process. And it came to fruition in 2016. And so
mhm,
since then, we have counseled and we have coached, we have even housed people. We have also given services and scholarships. And we've just been so blessed to do so many things that um, I didn't know that it would become. And it still is a very, very, very nonprofit organization. It is
yeah,
very, very grassroots still. But it has done a lot of good and sometimes some secret good, right? So I'm very, very proud of what it had, what it has been to the community and what it has been to the people who just really need some quality behavioral health care.
yeah, I agree. Yeah. Um, what would be your message to other healthcare professionals who have mental health diagnosis? Because you guys are human, you have your own issues and problems, and here you are helping the world and saving the day. What would you say to them?
Transparent. Be transparent. Be
Mhm.
transparent. Normalize it. Like, it's why is it a secret? Like, it's not a secret. It is as it
Yeah.
is. So yeah, normalize it, be transparent about it. And I believe when we normalize some things and we're transparent about some things, others can um what's the word? What's the best word for it? Allow themselves. I'm gonna say allow themselves to be vulnerable to the possibility that it may be them too. Like, I am vulnerable to the possibility that it could be me. I'm like, I understand, and I'll tell somebody in a minute that you know I have had anxious feelings or I have had depressed moments. Absolutely, because number one, it's true. Like, let's be clear. Like,
Yeah.
we're humans. Like, that is just a natural progression of emotions.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
why can't we be
Yeah.
okay with those emotions and
Yeah.
be okay with those? And sometimes, and this is what I try to help people to understand, sometimes depression is a symptom and not a disease. Now, it can be a disease or a disorder, absolutely, sure. However, we so afraid to say the word that we can't deal with the symptom.
Yeah. 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 And those symptoms are not born overnight. Could be years, years of it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, I love that you mentioned it could be you because I
Mm-hmm.
never thought it would be me.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to my diagnosis, I like to think I had a regular life, school, and all of that, and it didn't happen like within a flash. It was little by little by little. I ignored it. I went to school. I ignored it. I worked. I ignored it. I learn and teach my kids and being all of it, right? I think sometimes our bodies tries to communicate with us, but we ignore it until it's too late, right? And right away, I didn't ignore mine over time. I did get help. I'm still getting help. And I used to be ashamed of saying what I have. Now I
Mm-hmm.
don't care. And that's the power
Mm-hmm.
of healing. That's what has taken root. And I'm just passionate about helping other people to advocate. Because, yeah, why should people be ashamed of that, right? People are not ashamed to say
Absolutely.
so and so has cancer, right? I always compare to those severities because it's an example to see the truth that it is normal to be ill, to be sick, to need help, and to accept help as well. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's key, that accepting the help. Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely. Because
Yeah.
you got to be able to receive, and if you don't, if you can't receive the help, then it puts us back into a situation where we,
Mhm.
unfortunately, are doing a disservice to ourselves and to the
Mhm.
community around us, our
Yeah.
loved ones. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about law enforcement and mental health.
okay.
Ah, I don't even know where to start. I've had some good and bad experiences, all right? And obviously, they keep getting training, which is good. I think they need to continue to do that. But when it comes to them dealing with mental health clients from different severities of their illness, right? I think maybe more love or kindness or gentleness could be used. Obviously, to not put themselves in danger. What are your thoughts?
I think awareness is key. Awareness is always key. So understanding that this could be, this might be like, and being able to weigh that
Mhm,
against, whatever the current situation is. Um, I also know, as far as law enforcement is concerned, there's the other side of that, right? Like they got kids too. They got to go home. So, if somebody is acting erratically, like, and they don't know why it's happening. Now, of course, I'm not getting ready to defend anybody. But I will say, like when you're aware of it, sometimes it can, help you to ask more questions. Like, okay, why is this happening?
mhm,
But also in those moments, sometimes, depending on what happens, fear can creep up. Now, here's the thing: if fear is creeping up in a way that won't allow you to work through your job the way you should, then that should not be the job that you have. Um, right, like, so I've seen some situations where it was said, oh, well, I was afraid, I got afraid, I got, "Oh, okay, well, you shouldn't, that shouldn't be what you do, because that wasn't behavior to be afraid," right? Like, but then it's because you also see, then you can see an equally wild situation where a person was able to talk a person down or whatever the case is. But just being aware of just the vastness of mental health. And again, like, I'm not defending, and I'm not also just not,
mhm,
approving or whatever the case is. My hope would be that they continue to get the training that they need so that they can advocate, and that they can, begin to ask those questions and say, no, this ain't that. This is something different. Like this, even if they're not able to diagnose on a dime, like, I'm not asking you to be able to diagnose, but just see, like, this person may be struggling with autism or living with autism, as opposed to trying to harm you, right? Or this person may be having an episode instead of trying to harm you. So, what can we do? Can we utilize more restraints, as opposed to, the brute force type situation? But also knowing that, so it's, again,
mhm,
it's just a two-way street. It's a two-way street.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I
and I
agree.
just hope that they keep getting
Mhm.
the training. So I think
Yeah.
that's going to be super.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because for me, when I was in the hospital, I had to go. Um, there were a few very calm people there, doctors and whatnot, but there were some that I'm like, you're freaking me out by freaking out. I don't understand what's
Hmm.
happening to me. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why. And then they're freaking out and they're adding more fear and they're scaring me. So that's
Hmm.
not a good recipe. Maybe more gentleness, kindness, understanding, compassion. That goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And not just in law enforcement, but even in the medical field, because a lot of people in the medical field don't understand mental illness as it is. Like, so I had a loved one who was having some sporadic behavior, erratic behavior. And, the people know you, they call you, right? Got the call. I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't available at that moment, but I said, take them to the emergency room because if they continue to act like this, what I said was they'll buy their own 72, which means they'll be on hold um,
72
for
hours.
72 hours, right? So I was like, they'll buy 72 themselves. Well, what do I say to the people? Don't say anything. If they're acting that way, they'll buy their 72. Sure enough, they go to the hospital. They get to the hospital. Um, the person was acting erratic, different things of that nature. Okay, got it. They were going to put them on a 72-hour hold. Wonderful. In order to put them on a 72-hour hold, they have to be medically cleared. So the individual got a CAT scan, and from that CAT scan, found out that it was a brain tumor.
Mm.
So what
Wow.
looked like mental health was now a life-changing brain tumor for somebody who had never been sick. Now, this is where I say the education for what mental health, because now at this point, released from the 72-hour hold, and now it becomes a medical thing. But then what doesn't happen internally is that they change the information from the files, from the medical records. And this is why advocacy is important, because the next set of meds that was brought up were mood stabilizers.
Hmm.
Why are we bringing mood stabilizers? Did we not read do you see what I'm saying? Do we not read that the patient now
Oh,
has the brain tumor in place? Do we need to now we need to categorize that? Now I'm not saying that there is not mental health present anymore, but I am saying we have something now that is primary to, right?
yeah.
So the mental health may be as a result of this brain tumor, which it
Mhm.
was. Now, also, thank you, medical professionals, for all of your help and the things that you do. I honor your positions. I was not sure why they offered a mood stabilizer that takes 4 weeks to work.
Hmm.
Because mood stabilizers, right, take 4 weeks to get into your system to work. They don't work right away because they're mood stabilizers. Instead of having a breakthrough like narcotic or psychotropic med that would like a Xanax or something that's going to hit it quickly,
Yeah.
you bring in Wellbutrin.
Yeah.
So I think the greater need for education can't just look and say, oh, sporadic behavior and just pick one. Like it just doesn't work that way. Um,
Yeah.
and so we got through that. They got through that, and like you said, with some advocacy, because otherwise that just would have been the course of treatment, right? Um, but so
Yeah.
now we're in a space now where those questions can be asked. So like you said about law enforcement, just kind of more training and more knowing, like more training, more basic training of like kind of what different things are that are specific to mental health, right? I
Yeah.
think that's important.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Do you have anything else you'd like to share as we wrap up this amazing episode?
No, thank you so much for having me. I certainly appreciate you, and I'm very, very grateful for the time, and just being able to express like the need for mental health advocacy, and just the modalities in which I use. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have a few questions for you as we wrap up. Where can my listeners find you and support your work? I think you told us. I don't remember.
I don't think so. So daughterstatus.com, drjoypcreel.com. Those are my two primary websites that you can find those two things that we talked about. And then I'm all over social media as Dr. Joy P. Creel.
Mhm.
So feel free to DM me. I'm very nice and I speak back. Um, so yeah, DM me or email me at info at drjoypcreel.com, and that's CREEL.
Okay. And do you only work with clients where you are or around the world? Do you do Zoom calls? What do you do?
Absolutely. I do a virtual modality for mental health coaching. Absolutely. Now, as far as therapy, mental health therapy is concerned, I work specifically in Michigan because that's where my license is covered. However, mental health coaching, I do that worldwide.
Okay, okay. Last question for you. What
Yes.
is the meaning of life for you?
Ooh. And that takes me right back to my hope place. The meaning of life is more. Meaning of life is knowing that there is always more. And that for me, if I believe in God and what He has for me, then I believe by the power of the Holy Spirit that I'm able to keep going. So the meaning of life for me is just to live into the more that Jesus has for me. That's the
Mhm.
more.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Joy. It's been an honor to
Mhm.
speak to you, to hear of the love that you're pouring into those around you and around the world. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.